Okay, it's recording. Alright, we're Crossroads Mission. About to do a panel discussion. Sit back and relax. Okay, mic's on, right? Mic's on.
friend that, oh, and I forgot to say about Melissa, she's my daughter-in-law. next to her is our treatment director, but Caesar is sitting in the capacity of Celebrate Recovery today. And you'll find out, you can ask the questions about why Celebrate Recovery is different than a 12-step program. And next to him is Eric Frost. And Eric Frost is Eric Frost LLC Consulting Company. And as I understand it, Eric goes to companies and evaluates them for security and different things to help them out in their businesses. And then next to him, next to him is Raymond Mesa. And I met Raymond a few years back in Parker, and he came to a 12-step meeting we were having up there, and his testimony just blew me away. And so I asked him to come to our Road to Recovery, and he's been coming ever since, along with his wife, Johnny, and their son, Isaiah. So, yeah, right here. I pray for Raymond because he is very bold and outspoken. He has no problems calling what's going on in Real Truth. I saw him put on Facebook one time about someone who had been murdered, and he even said the name of the person that was the murderer, and he had no problem doing that. And I pray for his safety, because it has to put him and his family in jeopardy, because people who kill other people are not nice people. So he's working a struggle up there on the reservation in Parker and in Lake Havasu and around in that community. So I admire you, Raymond, and thank you for being here again. One thing I'll start out a question with is, I'd like to ask Chief Hilbert. That sounds very strange. Okay, call you Melissa. I was going to say Chief Hilbert. That won't go over well at Thanksgiving. But I want to ask you if you've seen the numbers increase on fentanyl overdoses as you answer calls in the community.
Yes, so we have noticed a large increase in fentanyl overdose over the last 2 to 3 years. We've always talked for several years now about opioid overdose, and I think that all started with a lot of prescription medications. We used to see that sort of overdose, but now more frequently we're seeing fentanyl overdose. We're seeing it increase among our teens in the community, especially in the high schools and even in the junior high schools. But we are also seeing it in our adults. And so the area that my fire department is responsible for is Yuma County. We don't cover the city of Yuma. So just in the population in the county tends to be slightly older than what you'll find in the city. The average age of an opioid overdose in our response area is in the 40s. But if you go into the city where there is a younger population, there are the high schools, you'll see that we have a lot of teenagers overdosing, and it's a lot due to fentanyl. In fact, we stopped tracking methamphetamines and other types of overdoses and really focused on fentanyl because there's just been such an increase over the last 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Good answer. Thank you. Caesar, I'd like for you to tell me why there are 8 steps in Celebrate Recovery, while NA and AA have 12 steps. And if I wanted to be real lazy, I could go to Celebrate Recovery and only work 8 steps.
First, I would tell you to come Monday night at 6:30 at Champion Church.
Okay.
But we actually do 12 steps also. But the difference is that we also not only deal with drugs, we deal with overall life, anxiety, depression, but the whole purpose is Christ-centered. It's Jesus Christ. After each step, we have a verse that goes with each step. And that's our main focus, because that's our healer, Jesus Christ, for our steps. Don't get me wrong, the other steps work. It's what's going to work for you. But for me, it's what works for me, and that's why I love Celebrate Recovery. They asked me about 9 years ago to do it, and at first I was like, no, I want to do it. But then God spoke to me and my wife, and now we've been doing it for 8 or 9 years. I don't even know how many years. I'm just guessing 8 or 9 years. It could be more, but it doesn't feel like that. At a point where I only had 2 people, and I was questioning myself, why am I doing this? Why? And then God revealed to me, because for that one person, for that second person, whoever shows up, we're there to serve, to be supportive for one another. And that's what I love, Celebrate Recovery, and I thank God for the opportunity at our church that we're able to facilitate. There's 2 other ones that just started at the Hope Center on 7th and 7th. They have a Celebrate Recovery there on Friday nights, and then in Foothills Assembly, they also have a Foothills Baptist. I can't remember which one it is, but they have it on Thursday nights also at 6:30. So we want to have a Celebrate Recovery every day, just like NA and AA. But we do have 12 steps, Myra.
I'm so sorry. Eric, but thank you for sharing. I wouldn't have known if I wouldn't have asked. Eric, tell us some of the challenges that you see in the businesses that you provide consulting services with.
Sure. So one of the things I do is I travel around the United States, and not only do I talk to businesses, I really work with high school, colleges. I work in just areas like this to touch the community. And one thing that I'll tell you is, the challenges is, when you go through a struggle, everybody wants to put their head down. Like, everybody believes that everybody's judging them, and the best thing I can tell you is to walk in your truth. If you can use what you've gone through as stepping stones, and you can own it, and nobody can use that against you. So they can say, yeah, you know what, you did drugs, I did, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? I build on that. And I tell people all the time, I've got where I'm at in life, not because I've been very lucky, but because I failed. And failure is the building blocks to success. So you just keep climbing, and you just keep working, and you keep your head lifted high, and you keep just saying, yes, I don't care if I was an addict, I don't care if I had anger issues, I don't care what I've done. That's not me anymore. I'll never let somebody judge you on who you were. Just show them who you are now.
Thank you. And Raymond, all the work that you've been doing with MMIP and Stand Strong Together, are you seeing a difference in your community in Parker? And I have great concern for Parker, because when people come here and they go through the program, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, but when we send them back to Parker, we never hear from them again. But we hear things like they've relapsed or they've died. And what are you doing to change the landscape over there?
First of all, the Parker is split between the reservation, and they have their own set of laws. The tribal police, and then there's county, and there's always jurisdictional confusion. And the reason MMIW came out and then turned into MMIP is because we found out that in this day and age, nobody was keeping track of how many Indian women were being murdered. My sister was one of them. Back in 2016, my sister was brutally murdered, and we marched. I'm an ex-drug dealer, ex-gangbanger, ex-prison gang member, ex-drug addict. I mean, more of an addict than a dealer. And I did a lot of harm to the community. And then when my sister was murdered, as a brother, I didn't even know who would help me. Where do I start? What do I do? Because all these street laws are in place to keep my mouth shut. But as a brother, the brother in me, just knowing that my sister was tortured, humility is to accept what God wants you to be and care what He wants you to be rather than what people see you as. So I came out of my shell and we marched and we broke down those walls of, because the non-tribals always say the Indians get away with everything. The Indians blame everything on the whites. We wouldn't have to do this if the whites didn't do it. Then the Indians don't like Mexicans and vice versa. There was just a lot of, and people capitalize on that. And the community gets angered about it. And so what we did, our group is a community group, a grassroots group. We're a nonprofit. We're not a nonprofit, meaning that a grassroots group is that we pay for everything. And so we broke down the walls of everyone being separated. We said, look, the judgments coming out of our courtrooms are affecting the community. So we marched side by side with non-tribals and told them, the group started to stand strong together, meaning all of us, this is a us thing. And we raised awareness, and through raising awareness, more and more people are coming forward, more and more people are being bold, more and more people are taking a stand and saying that we're tired of this, and more people, I'm talking about like school principals, ex-cops, ex-chief of police are coming to me and giving me information and saying, we're giving this to you because we know you'll speak about it. So the work we do in the community is making a big change, a big difference. It brought back hope. People have gave up on hope because the gangs and the drugs and the jurisdictional confusion overruled everything. But now those walls are coming down. So, our group pretty much it put hope back in the community.
To questions that you might have. Yes, right over here.
I have a question for.
Stand up and.
I have a few questions for Ms. Melissa. One is qualifications to be your basic land firefighter or your rural land firefighter. The other would be age limit, and the other would be is it a pay rate or is it salary? Do you get like a starting annual salary, or do you get a starting hourly pay rate? Like, what other qualifications do you have to go to Arizona Western College, or just have a GED to start as a basic firefighter, like wildland firefighter? Is that different from rural metro firefighter, or is it the same type of firefighter?
Okay, that's a great bunch of questions.
I think I heard it all, but you may have to remind me. I'll start with the wildland firefighter. So that is a certification. It's what we call an S130, S230. It's a class. It's two classes that you need to begin as a basic wildland firefighter. Education before that, really none, not even a high school diploma. It just depends on where you're getting your, where you're wanting to go work, whatever their pre-hire qualifications are. But to take that class it's just a certification, so there's not really a prerequisite for that. Regarding the wage, it varies depending, again, on where you go to work. Are you working for a private fire department? Are you working for, say, the Bureau of Land Management, someplace like that, a government position? It really depends. I imagine it could start from minimum wage and go up depending on your experience. What was the third part?
The last one was age gap. Is there a certain age gap, like under 45, yes, maybe over 50, to be a wildland firefighter? You might have to pass a certain different physical test or a lower physical test.
Right, so for wildland firefighting, I'm not sure if there's a maximum age, 18 to start, and then there's a physical test. Again, it probably varies a little bit depending on the agency, but it's typically you have to carry a 45-pound pack and be able to walk 3 miles within 45 minutes wearing that pack, something along those lines. It's been many years since I've done wildland firefighting, so but it's something along those lines. And then yes, there is a difference between wildland firefighting and what we call structural firefighting. So at my fire department, we do a mix of both. Our firefighters are trained for both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those great questions. Thank you. Someone else have questions? Come on, don't be, yes, Tommy.
I'm Tommy Greenhoe. What are, Melissa, thank you for everything you do, the whole panel. What are your plans of educating the youth about the problems that you're facing every day? Are you going into the schools, or what is the fire department planning to do?
That's a really good question. So fire departments traditionally do a lot of public education. We go into the schools, yes. We go into other public events. For example, the game event that they just had last weekend or the weekend before at the Target parking lot, where there was a bunch of public safety there. We can do education there. And we do, anytime we have an opportunity, we go into schools for fall fairs. I mean, there's just a number of things throughout the year that we do. Mainly in the fall, it seems to be when we're the busiest. But we take every opportunity, especially now as we are seeing that Yuma has just been inundated, especially with fentanyl and how it's affecting our youth in the community. So every opportunity that we have to be in the community, and especially to be around children and start the education early, we take advantage of that.
Just to add to your question, sir, there's also a thing called CTE, Continuing Education, in our high schools right now that has EMS programs and law and public safety programs. I'm actually an instructor for AWC and for Kofa High School when it comes to teaching our kids about laws, and not so much just to become officers, but just awareness. I mean, how many of you guys wish when you were in high school you would know the do's and don'ts of what to do, what to look out for? And so we really educate the kids there as well. And as far as other things, I know the schools bring people like myself in, and we do trainings on that to educate as much children as we can, as well as the teachers. And so right now there's a huge push to educate the teachers so that they can know the signs and symptoms, and that they can educate their students and get that across the board.
Okay.
Do you work hand in hand with law enforcement to bring down, do you guys share information as far as use of fentanyl and who's using it when you have like overdose and you go to home? Do you work hand in hand? Is there programs that you like give the public, like when you go to a home, is there literature that you give the parents? You know, like if the kid ODs, is there literature that you give the parents to help them further educate themselves on the signs of fentanyl use, you know, in their household, like the minors that may be using it. And I just wonder if you guys work hand in hand with law enforcement reporting all that. That way you guys establish like a database on where parts of the area, the community is hit more than the others.
Yes, so we do work with law enforcement very closely on a daily basis, and of course the leadership in public safety all across Yuma County. And we share information, statistics in our area, and we have, meetings pretty regularly, not necessarily specific to fentanyl, but just public safety in general. That may be drug use, it may be mental health, it may be a number of things, but we do share information that way. Regarding literature, we don't have anything in our fire department that we share, when we go to someone's home or something like that. But we do have literature that we share at public education events, and of course, we partner with law enforcement whenever we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have one for you, Raymond.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that ex-cops, principals and whatnot will hand you guys over information in your community, but what about the current law enforcement in your community or politicians? Do they see you as a troublemaker in the community, someone stirring the pot, or more?
Both. I came out publicly against the election of the current chief of police, or sheriff of La Paz County, because he had charges of officer unbecoming. He sent it's like the story of David, King David. This chief sent his deputy out, and when his deputy was out, he was in the office getting his lady, and they caught him, and he admitted to it, and he was on AC in the AC post. And so when he came out as running for sheriff, I got together with a buddy of mine, and we made videos exposing him, because it's a dirtbag move on both sides, criminal and law enforcement. And if he's to be a chief of police, you have to be like above reproach, like an elder in the church. You have to be blameless, because what kind of example is a sheriff if he's sending his deputies out sleeping with their women? So when we came out with them, then people started saying, okay, and they started shooting me more information. And so, yeah, I'm looked at as both nuisance and hope for people, because we're against corruption and everything. Criminals come in every form, and we don't want them as leaders. Normally, they keep the criminal side on our side, saying, look what they're doing. And we all know, as being from the hood and everything, we know that there's corruption on in every department too. But there's also those people that are trying to do what's right, and those are the people that feed me information. So.
Awesome.
Wow, thank you. Eric, did you have something to say? Did you want to say?
There is none.
Okay. And very good. Man, we are getting some great questions here. Caesar hasn't been very busy, so somebody put him to the test, please. And yes.
Mike? Oh, go ahead. Are you sure?
Wait.
My question for Raymond, I just want to know, is there more people or more kids using more alcohol? Is your rise in alcohol or drugs?
They go hand in hand.
Exactly.
In the elementary school, the kids were passing, I think in the fourth graders were passing foil and smoking prescription pills, and they had shot bottles with it. So they're doing like they're I guess getting twisted on both, so they go hand in hand.
Right. Well, I forgot the golden rule. Anything that alters your mind is a drug. What do you think alcohol does?
Yeah.
Alters your mind.
Yeah.
Correct?
Okay, next to him. Yes.
I was just wondering, do you feel a lot of resistance after you came out and started speaking against
Oh yeah.
the person you were? And is it harder for you, or is it become, besides that, you feel like you got a target on your neck now? Do you speak out stronger now? Or, besides being careful about it, but I understand that part. But do you feel a lot of resistance from the people that used to give you information, or are they just giving it to you more now?
There were, in the beginning.
And thank you.
You're welcome. In the beginning, I didn't know what to do. Like I said, I helped destroy that community. My wife's a 16-year detention officer. She drove me from every church. I went everywhere. I knocked on every church door, and I asked them to march with me. I gave invitations to law enforcement, to every agency I could, and you'd be surprised, even the tribal council, and you'd be surprised of the very people that I thought would be there 100% were the ones that slammed their door in my face after giving me a lecture about how, we've been trying to raise this, we've been trying to raise this issue with the community for years. Good luck with that. Bam. I'm like, the Bible says when someone asks you to walk with them a mile, to go with them too.
Right.
And it was those very people. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Christian, but Christians don't like Christians, and because it's not them doing it, then they'll condemn what you're doing. And then you got a lot of Christians that have been Christians since about 20 years. And at the time I was new to be my walk with Christ, so they got mad, and they more or less they're mad at God, saying, why do you give him the open doors and not me? Why are you speaking to him? He's did this his whole life. And because I chose this, like I said, when God asked me to do this, I said yes to him. And when I said yes, he gave me everything, protection and everything. He says, do not be scared. So was it hard? Yes, in the beginning, but then God sent the guys from Victory Outreach to Parker, and there was a lot of ex-gang members there too. And so whenever you're feeling like you're about to falter and everything like that, he always sends people to hey, pick yourself back up and do this. And it's beautiful. And do I get scared? No, I mean, as a gangbanger, I've been shot, I've been stabbed multiple times. In Mexico, I got hacked up with the machete, and they had to drive my body to the port of entry, and they gave me my ID and say he's an American citizen, and they flew me to Yuma Regional, and they saved me, knocked my grill out, everything. I had stab wounds all over me, And so that part of death, I've already, like familiar spirit, I've already experienced it. And Pastor John Smith out in Victorville told me once, he said, when we're out there gate banging, we're willing to stand on the corners and flag or willing to get shot. But once we come to Christ, all of a sudden we want to be quiet and be all fragile and don't say this and that, you know. And it's like, why now that you're part of a new hood, why ain't you out there representing? So I go out there and it's that lights my fire, and the fact that more men need to do it.
More questions? Oh,
Caesar, what's the biggest difference between AANA and celebrate recovery?
Jesus. We're not afraid to speak about Jesus. That's our healer. That's our main focus. I go back again, we have the same steps, but with each step comes with a verse. And you can ask some staff here that have done the steps. The steps are totally different than just the AA, because AA focus on alcohol, NA focus on drugs. The Celebrate Recovery focuses on hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And that's A to Z to life. So whatever you're dealing with. And it goes more into depth on your steps, especially in your step 4. Our steps, they take like 8 months to do them. You guys doing the steps here in 4 months. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong, but it's a whole different level of what you have to deal with, because yes, you deal with your drugs. And I go back to step 1. What is step 1?
we
admitted we're powerless, and that's what we focus on. But did you know the second half of that? What's the second half? Is our life is unmanageable. So when we focus solely on that we admitted we're powerless, what are you doing to make your life manageable? And that hit me more when Jose Vidal taught me that. And that's where we focus on. And Jesus is our healer.
Yes.
So you say you go around different college campuses and whatnot, different businesses. Do you deal with culture diversity issue?
I do. And when I talk about when I go around, I don't go to just everywhere that has money. For me, you know, I'm a minister as well, and I believe of going places others don't want to go. I don't target going to other churches and other churches. My ministry has always been to go to people who most don't want to go to riverbanks or the homeless or dealing with other things. But when it comes to my company, I try to go everywhere. I was just in Atlanta. When I'm in Atlanta, I try to learn and understand different cultures, different ways that people are going through things. Because ultimately, what we have to realize is it's only a matter of time before it hits your community. A lot of times we have that mindset that if it's happening in that hood, it doesn't bother me, it's not over here. It has nothing to do with it. But it's only a matter of time before it crosses the street. And so what I try to look for is the signs and the symptoms of how things work, how they get introduced into the system. One of the things when I work with schools and we were looking at fentanyl, I was talking to some people who were telling me that, you know, unlike methamphetamines and marijuana where you want to try for euphoria or peer pressure, they were like, well, we'll just trick the kids. If we get a different color sandwich bag and drop a fentanyl pill in, this kid takes it, he's going to be an addict. And now I got this kid for lunches and months and years, and they're targeting our kids and not giving them a decision. So that's the thing that I see in some communities that scares me before it comes to here to Yuma, because we don't have that situation. As far as I'm aware of, I haven't seen any cases where they're just changing up the sandwich bags and getting these kids addicted and getting lifelong customers. So those are some of the things, the information that I like to go receive from other communities and bring back to our community so that we can be more prepared for it.
Mr. Frost, thank you for saying that failure is a stepping stone to success, because in my experience, when I came in here, I had a choice. I could see myself as a failure and wallow in guilt and shame, which I did when I first got here,
I break down that acronym. And the first, I'm just gonna focus on the I, which is identity. I know who I am. Nobody can tell me who I am. I know my faith is the number one thing in my life. I know that myself, without God, I am terrible. I've been terrible at it, okay? I make a lot of mistakes. But I also know that I'm not perfect. And so when I make mistakes, and I commend you for that, because when you faced with a decision, most people, you pick the easy route, right? Like you're like, you know what? Everybody says I'm no good. I might as well be no good. But I would tell you, don't pay any mind to that. When you hear somebody talk about you, just filter that out, right? Like if my car was outside and I tried to put a home filter on it, would you think it'll work? It wouldn't work, right? So I tell people you need different filters in your life. I have a spiritual filter. It helps me understand my true worth. And so I know that I'm going to make a mistake, but everybody before me has made mistakes. There's only one man who's never made a mistake on this earth, right? And so that's who I look to. And then I say, you know what, I'll fall down, but I'll get back up. And then I'll just do, you know what, I may have put some pounds on for my wife's homemade tortillas, but I'll get out there and I'll walk, right? I have that physical thing too, that you can't just say, you know, mentally I'm going to be okay. I read books. I try to better myself. I go to church. I understand that there's a spiritual aspect, but there's also a physical aspect. You gotta do a transfer of that aggression in you. A lot of us sometimes we're mad about the situations we find ourselves in, and so I found healthy outlets, right? I would get out there, I hit the bag a little bit, I would go for runs, I would work out a little bit, I would read books, I would better myself, and I would always tell myself that no matter how life will give you enough reasons to quit. It's up to me to find reasons not to quit. And so I would look at the things that matter, my family, right? Maybe your recovery. Something to say, you know what, no matter how hard you've got hit, you can get back up. And then I think for me, it was my car accident. I actually retired from Newton County Sheriff's Office because I got in a really bad car wreck. And it almost, when I tell you I had depression, I was sad, I was on special operations. You go from being on SWAT to not even being able to pick up my son, to not even being able to wipe your own behind, and then seeing my wife struggle, and it was really hard for me to overcome all of that. And in law enforcement, we're taught to be alpha males. And a lot of you, if you grew up in gangs or other things, you're taught to suck it up, right? That's just it. Suck it up, be a man, go about it. But it's okay to let those feelings out. And so for me, I wanted to show my family that no matter how hard I hit rock bottom, that I could get back up. And so what I decided to do was, instead of take disability, I decided to work hard. And I told them no. And I remember I had supervisors like, you're not going to take disability? And I said, nope. And I said, I'll get back on top. And I started my company and I worked hard. And my sons and my daughters got to see that. And a couple years ago, they told me, they said, Dad, for 5 years we saw you recover and we've never seen you sad or upset or cussing or anything. You just always had a smile and you always had something nice to say. And I said, because I'm alive. I got to see your brother's first steps, right? I got to see you guys watch a soccer game. And so as long as you have breath and as long as you have life, you can make a change. No matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, you can always turn around. And so that's what I just tell myself is keep fighting, keep going down, and if you find yourself going down the wrong path, turn around. So what if you have to drive a little bit longer? Just keep fighting and keep fighting and keep fighting, never give up.
Hey, with Halloween coming up, you know, like we've seen a video not so long ago on fentanyl, like being Skittles and stuff like that. Do you guys do anything for the awareness for the kids for Halloween?
So yes, I know that YPD and the Sheriff's Office have programs. I know that through the schools they have trunk or treat where they go through and they scan the candies, and there's safe places for kids to get candy if they really want to go through and do it. And I really do recommend that because during this time there's a lot of people that do a lot of sick things for a lot of different reasons. But it's easy to jump onto YPD's page or the Sheriff's Office or some of the high schools that you can look into. If you go on social media, all you really have to do is type in trunk or treats, and you'll find them at stores, you'll find them in school parking lots. And there's a lot of places that you guys can go take your kids to and bring your kids in. And I want to say, I believe the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, there's one at KOFA, and if I can get the information and pass it out. But there's different areas where you can go to where kids can get candy and be safe about it.
The second part of that was like for the kids, is there programs where they can learn how to like administer Narcan and all that? Also, like
let me answer the first one too. But as a parent, it's our duty to ask the schools too.
Right.
When I gave the presentation, what we're talking about, I asked, when it hit me, like, I'm gonna go ask my school principal where my kids go to. And for them, I asked them, do you have something about speaking about this? And they're like, no. So I encourage those that have kids, parents need to speak up too. We need to educate ourselves because I had to share this with my 12-year-old, 7-year-old, 11-year-old. My 12-year-old didn't want to hear it, and I said, no, you're going to hear it because this is life, this is what's happening. Us that have kids and parents, we need to educate ourselves on what are our children getting into, what is out there. And if we don't share that, they're going to fall. They're going to follow the crowd. So those that are parents here, you need to speak up too. You need to show up to the teacher parents conference. You need to, whatever they have for the schools, because that's what I've seen. Kids have even shared. We had a privilege to meet at a town hall a couple weeks ago where Myra spoke, and what impressed me was there was 30 high school kids there, and they shared what they're dealing with, and that's awesome because we need to listen to them too.
So go ahead, ask your question again.
Like Narcan, are they, you guys teaching them how, like, not you guys, but like in general for the schools for like the Halloween? You know how kids, they're not gonna go to a treat, they're gonna go out to houses, you know what I mean, get their candy. But like, like I said, administration, Narcan, like, really know how to use them.
So as far as my understanding is, I don't see any programs where they're teaching the children, but they have taught the teachers. And so there's on any given campus, there's areas that are strategically positioned around, that there's individuals who have been taught how to use it. And the students may know where teacher to go to if something happens or who to call. And there's usually a leader, somebody in that building who can get it to them and get them help if needed. But there's not going specifically to the students. I'm not aware of anything. Yeah, so I don't think it's for the students, mostly for the teachers.
More questions? Come on, we still got some more time. I know your guess.
For Melissa, Melissa, right? Coming up in the ranks in your department and whatnot, I'm pretty sure you went through some adversaries, you know, sexism and whatnot. Was there any time where you thought that you just wanted to give up? And if so, what made you just keep going?
I'd say I feel like I've been very fortunate in my career. So I've been with Rural Metro Fire here in Yuma for 22 years. And, you know, you always come across people from time to time that have biases, you know, or, you know, maybe treat you differently because of your gender. Honestly, I think I've experienced that more with patient encounters than with my crew members. But no, my department's been very supportive of me over the years, obviously. I think that's why I made it to where I did today. Yes, of course, I think everyone encounters those things. It doesn't matter, you know, where you're at in life or what career that you're in. But the point is, I guess, you can't use that as an excuse. You know, you can't set yourself up in advance for going to encounter people that don't think that I should be here, and use that as an excuse to stop trying or for poor performance. You just have to keep moving along, and everything else, it'll go to the wayside.
More questions? Yes, Tom.
Is there any kind of a program or follow-up to people that you encounter with that need to go to the hospital because of an overdose? You can follow up, and also for you, did they catch the people that were in the murder?
Yes, the two of them, a man and a woman, they both got the max. We as a family agreed to take the death penalty off the table for both of them because the only way to end the cycle is, you know, trusting God, and we didn't want to become murderers ourselves, so we agreed as a family to take the death penalty off, and they got 25 to life, both of them, and in that time when I spoke to the murderers, I got to speak on behalf of my family. I gave them a verse out of the Bible. I said, in the Bible it says, if someone does me wrong, to tell them of your wrongs. And I'm speaking on behalf of my sister. If it was me speaking on my behalf, I would have just dove over the table and got them. But I'm speaking on behalf of my sister. My sister was beautiful, and she would have wanted me to forgive them. The first thing out of her mouth, and you're going to hear this from everybody in this room, that's my friend. They were my friends. Even at court, they kept saying my friend, until it disgusted the judge, and she said, she ordered them to stop saying my friend. You know, so yes, they did catch him, and they got the max.
What he asked about.
Can you repeat your
Is
question?
there any kind of a follow-up with people that have overdoses that you transport, about education? Do you do any kind of follow-up to the people who are overdosing?
So the follow-up that I guess we are involved in is once we have taken a patient to the hospital, we do get some feedback from the hospital on outcome, you know, whether it was a successful resuscitation, if it's a resuscitation, or was it not. But beyond that, you know, did they go into treatment, those sorts of things? No. I do know that they have case managers at the hospital here that tries to help, you know, when they encounter patients that have had an overdose, to get them into treatment. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
And this woman right here in the red?
I was wondering if anyone can attend Celebrate Recovery, or should we finish our 12 steps first, or what would you recommend?
If you're in the program, finish the program first, and then, go to CR, continue to go to the meetings. But anybody, this is for anybody. Anybody that's dealing with the hurt, habit, or hangover, we're always open. We're always welcome. We're always welcoming, and we're always offering when they're not there. Remind them that the doors are always open.
So would that count as a class to go to, like for NA or AAs? Or no?
What do you?
Like for drug court or anything like that?
Yes,
Would
I've
count?
done it for drug court. Yeah. I had plenty of people show up from drug court that are involved with the drug court program.
We have Steve in the back over here.
My name's Steve, and I'm in recovery for alcohol and drug addiction, and I'm a
Steve.
believer in Jesus Christ. So the other day I was in prayer and meditation, and I was just talking to Jesus, and me and Jesus, we have a very open relationship, and I said to Jesus, what do you look like? You know? And it doesn't really matter, but Jesus says, I look like freedom. And who the Son sets free is free indeed. You know, and in recovery, we get to pass through a new and triumphant arch to freedom. We get to live a new life of freedom, a new life of happiness. We get to live free of alcohol and drugs. So one of my favorite scriptures is, who the Son sets free is free indeed. So Caesar, what's your favorite scripture?
Well, thank you for putting me on the spot. The one that has been really touching, be strong and courageous, because I had the privilege of going, Joshua 1:9, I had the privilege to go to a summit, a CEO summit that Myra blessed me to go, and I was sitting in the front row. Why was I sitting in the front row? Because I was late. Everybody that shows up early sits in the back, right? Right back, people? But no, God had that chair open for me, and I sat with this lady. And she taught, and we were there, and then finally the third day we started having a conversation, and I got to know her a little bit better, and she ministered me. And she said, Caesar, I'm hearing you, I'm talking to you. And she shared that story about Moses. And I hear the word if all the time from your mouth. And God's telling me to tell you to be strong and courageous, just like Joshua. And that's the scripture that I'm sticking with right now. And that's what God is speaking to me. So thank you.
Hi, Chief. What's your opinion on Narcan? came back and you didn't have one, they would want to know why, whatever, it affects me. But I know in a 2-week period, if I didn't have those Narcans with me, I did meth, but I would always have them with me because I know the people I'm with. I used 8 of them in like a 2-week period with 5 different people. But, the thing is, if they called the paramedics, or, I had to call the paramedics, so I was rescue breathing for one. And he ended up having this, it just took him to get treated, and they released them, and he didn't, do anything about it. But if it wasn't for the Narcan available, I almost lost him. But what is your feelings on Narcan already available for people who could die? Because I know the heroin was being cut with fentanyl, so people were just dropping all over the place.
You're right, and not just heroin. We're finding EMS providers are coming across patients that bystanders are telling us, oh no, they didn't do fentanyl, they did cocaine.
Yeah.
But we push Narcan, and Narcan's what brings them, about. So, my personal opinion, years ago when they started bringing Narcan into the Yuma community and giving it, to drug users and making it available in the pharmacies, I was against it, to be honest. Having lost 3 family members from drug addiction and drug-related deaths, not fentanyl, but other drugs, I felt pretty strongly that giving the Narcan was enabling, right? And we don't want to enable. But my position has changed on that over the years. I've seen firsthand people that have been saved by Narcan being administered, by someone that happens to be another drug addict that's in the room that witnesses somebody go unconscious and stop breathing. I've seen people die twice and revive twice from Narcan because his wife gave him Narcan after overdosing. And had she not done that, who knows how long it would have been before EMS arrived and we were able to administer the Narcan. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, We don't want to encourage more drug use, but at the same time, it's saving lives. So that's my opinion on that.
Very good, thank you. Okay, one more question here.
For Ms. Calista, are you seeing a rise or a fall in juvenile and a rise and a fall in adult? Or is the pattern the same all the way across? Or are you seeing more information getting out to the public, making more juveniles aware of it, and is it bringing the average down? Is it bringing the down or up?
So I can only speak from the statistics that come out of our department, and like I said, we deal more, I don't want to say with an older population, but we're not dealing so much with the youth as the city fire department. But I can tell you that when we first started experiencing what kind of the flood of fentanyl coming over the border, we saw a really big rise in high school students overdosing. And over time, I think there's been a decrease there. But it's about the same, adults and juveniles, from my experience. It's about the same, and it's just been steadily increasing over the past few years.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to bring it to a close here, and I'd like each of our panel's members to just say something that's on your heart. And Raymond has a meeting coming up, and then he's going to speak to us later today for a few minutes also. So Raymond, just close out your part of the panel.